Yeah, I'm really happy that you were able to get through Kingdom Hearts 2, especially fighting the what was it called? The
Lingering Well.
Lingering Will, yes. Yeah. And seeing that strategy, I'm glad that there was a cheese strategy, and sometimes that's what you got to do is cheese it, and it's so frustrating when you're stuck. I mean, when you feel like that's your only option, but there comes a certain point when it's just like I've been trying this over and over legitimately, and now it's time to just cheese away. So, but yeah, good stuff. Speaking of cheesing away, so I mean, there's actually been 3 games I played this week, but only one of them I actually did any cheesing. So obviously, the main thing is Dark Souls 3. I will get to that. Actually, you know what? I'll do them in order of how I played them. So started with Dark Souls 3. I'm not gonna have I don't have clips for all of these because some of them I thought I recorded, but I didn't actually record. But this is one situation where the ones that I didn't record, I'm honestly not that disappointed that I didn't get them, because they were either ones where it was just like, okay, this is an obvious way to win the fight, or it was a situation where it wasn't something where like it was like anything special, I guess you could say. So, but after we talked last week, I did go and fight Yhorm the giant, and I of course took that special sword. So the way that it works, it's partially accurate for what you said, but it's not 100%. So you charge up the whatever the name of that sword is, the storm sword or whatever it's called, storm roller. That's what it's called. So you charge that up, and then you press R2 in order to do the long range attack. That does like almost 6,000 damage to him for one hit, and does drop him to his knees initially. However, you can't, at least from what I could tell, you can't actually do like a strong attack on him, or you can't like walk up to him and then hit him hard like you would normally when they're on their knees. So you basically just have to keep using that charging attack. The problem is, because of how long it takes to charge, if you're not, I mean, basically, apart from like the first time when he actually falls to his knees, most of the times you have to get away from him a bit in order to charge it again, because it takes a little bit to charge before you can actually use it. But each time you use it, it does like 6,000 damage, and takes about, I think it was 4 or 5 hits total to kill him. It did take me several tries to get through that, just because of the fact that it's hard to get the time to charge it up. That's really what it comes down to. So, but I did beat him. Unfortunately, I don't have the footage recorded. I did record at least one of the attempts once I started doing that. So at least you'll see, what it looks like. It's just, of course, that I didn't manage to actually record the winning attempt. But then moving on, I went into on Orlando. Yeah, because I had like just started to move in that direction, and deal with the Silver Knights, of course. So I guess I was kind of wrong last week. Last week I said that the Silver Knights don't respawn and the Black Knights do, or the other way around. No, I can't remember. Yeah, I said the Black Knights respawn and the Silver Knights don't. So it's like there's one area where the Silver Knights don't respawn, and then the rest of the time they respawn. The Black Knights, it seems like they just respawn, period. So I don't know. It's weird. It's like that's just the way that Miyazaki does things, and so it is whatever. It is what it is. Thankfully, the archers were nowhere near as bad to deal with this time around, because there was enough obstacles to where it was easier to avoid them. Like getting up to the where the elevator is to get into On Orlando. You can walk along the like the right side of those slanted roofs. I don't know what you would call them, buttresses or something. So you can walk along the side of them, and it's possible to avoid the archers. And I basically just abused Toxic Mist. So that was how I took most of them out. And as much as possible, like, I would use it. I mean, if I had the option, I'd do it, through environmental obstacles. Like the very first archer that you come upon, it's pretty easy to just do the poison mist through, or the toxic mist through the pillar that he's standing in front of, and then he doesn't even come after you because he doesn't see you. As long as he doesn't see you, as long as they don't see you, typically, they will not come after you. So it's like, he wasn't too bad to deal with. The second one was a little more tricky because he would see you, but it was possible to avoid him enough to where you could avoid getting killed. Then there's like a third one, pretty easy to get him through one of the pillars, and then he doesn't come after you. But then there's one that that's around a corner, and that one is a lot harder to get to easily, especially because of how long it takes to use the Toxic Mist. And so it just ends up being kind of tricky. It was basically, I figured out the way that was easiest to do it was try to get over there, breathe the Toxic Mist, run back, and then kind of hide behind a pillar so that you're just far enough away to where he doesn't come after you with his sword and shield, or spear, or whatever that one uses. And then he just keeps trying to fire his giant arrows at you, and you're protected by the pillar and stuff, and he just dies from the Toxic Mist. And anyway, all that being said, I got through that area, was able to it took quite a few tries. I ended up dying quite a number of times, but it was nowhere near as bad as in the original on Orlando with the archers there. Mostly because that area is significantly smaller than the original on Orlando was. A lot more simplified. You basically just have like the main hall, and really that's it, because most of the side stuff is completely gone now. But that being said, I initially went into the fight against Aldrich. So you can you can be summoned to help fight Aldrich with Cirrus. No, not Cirrus. With Henri. Cirrus is a different fight that you do. And it's just like a summoning symbol, like right in front of the main doors to the main hall. You can do it there. And so like initially I went in there and I'm like, oh, I guess I'm fighting Aldrich this way. I don't have to fight her later. And, several tries, and it was probably like 10 tries. And then, we took down Aldrich. Then I actually get inside, see the corpse of the giant blacksmith, and, get inside the main hall and deal with the enemies there. And then I get to the actual fight against Aldrich. And it's definitely more challenging solo, but it still wasn't terrible. Like, it was hard. It still took me quite a few tries, but it wasn't like one of them where I got super frustrated. At least up to this point, I had not really hit a wall. Like, definitely had some challenges, but I hadn't really hit any walls. So I got through that, and then I got teleported to the dancer. Now, thankfully, initially, when I started the fight unintentionally, I just used a homeward bone to get out because of the fact that I wanted to make sure I actually was able to use my souls, because I knew I was gonna probably die right away. Then I go back and try to fight it. This was a wall for a while. It was one of the most frustrating fights I've done in this game, and probably the second most frustrating. I'll get to the first. So this one, I tried so many times. At best, I was getting it down a little more than halfway. But like I tried some different strategies. I was, doing a decent job dodging for the most part, but I just get hit enough and get killed. And get killed. And get killed. And killed. And killed. And killed. And killed. And I mean, I spent a bunch of time doing this. I think it was probably Saturday. And I just was getting so sick of this stupid fight. And I looked up a cheese strategy, which was just basically utilizing a glitch. And initially I couldn't get the glitch to work. But then I watched like an updated video from that same person that explained it a little more clearly in a couple spots that I didn't quite understand on the initial viewing of the video, and was able to glitch and just stand in the door and use arrows until that stupid thing was dead. I cheesed it, and I am not ashamed. That is one fight where, like, I don't have any regrets, because I really tried. I tried and tried and tried. Now, if I had been in a position where I didn't have a choice and there was no cheese, I probably would have eventually gotten it, but man, it also could have been one of those that could have just made me quit the game. It was that frustrating to me. And I mean, like, I tried a lot of different strategies, just nothing really worked for me. Honestly, the thing that got me the most with that fight was that grab. Getting grabbed and then instant one-hit kill. It's just like, oh, well, that sucks. And I mean, even when I got to a point where it's like, okay, I'm being more careful, I'm keeping my distance, waiting to attack until after she's done doing the grabbing animation, and, you know, finding openings here and there, doing pretty decent, but it's just, there would be one mistake or another, and it was usually, I don't know, I hated that fight. It sucked. So I moved on from there, started going into Aldrich Castle. So initially, you know, minor frustrations here and there, just, you know, enemies ganging up on me, so on and so forth. Just the usual stuff. I get to Dragonslayer armor. And this one was definitely hard. And I probably should have given it more attempts than I did. Especially because, like, the last, I think, couple times I tried to do the fight, I just used pyromancy. So I was just, you know, trying to avoid throwing a Great Chaos Fireball, which uses up a lot of FP, but, you know, I just did it while I could, did it for a while. If I had stuck with it, I probably could have beaten it completely legitimate, but I came across a cheese strategy. And I used it. That one I'm a little more like, you know, I probably should have given it more tries before I cheesed it, but I was so just over it after the dancer that I took advantage of that cheese strategy because it worked and it was easy to do. So the way this strategy works, you have to be embered for the strategy to work, and you go up to the door, and then before you enter, you try to invade somebody else's world. So you just use your invasion item, and then once it tells you that it's starting to invade the world, then you go through the fog gate, and then it will teleport you immediately to somebody else's world. Now, because you are already going through the fog gate, normally what it will do is it will teleport you back to your world, but the boss will have already been activated, and you will be outside the fog gate door. Now, if it doesn't teleport you back automatically, you can just, I mean, from the invaded world, you can just use the black stone item, whatever it's called, and then it'll teleport you back, and it works the same. So the boss will be hanging out right by the fog gate, and you can't use arrows or anything, but you can use pyromancy or any spells or anything with, like, AoE effects. And that's what I did. It still took quite a while to get through the fight. But I did get that recorded, and as well as the cheese on the dancer. And yeah, that one I'm a little disappointed in myself for giving up so early, because it wasn't even necessarily like I was super frustrated with the fight, because I really didn't attempt it that many times. It was just I was just not in the mood to struggle through it, and I knew that it was going to be a hard fight. I knew that it was one of the harder fights. But yeah, I took advantage of that cheese, and I beat it. But then, that's when I get to Lothric and Lorien. This was my wall. Very, very much so. So, I go into the fight initially. I die like in one hit. And it's just because I only had like I had sort of seen someone do the fight one time, but I wasn't really prepared for it. I was trying to dodge. I was not having any success dodging. So I go back in with the Dragonslayer's Great Shield, whatever it's called. The one you get from Dragonslayer armor. So this thing is, it's a massive shield. It's really heavy, but it also does a great job blocking damage. And doesn't typically use up a whole lot of stamina. So like, I was going in with the shield, and then I would just attack them as I could. And for the most part, like, the strategy was working. It was easy enough. I could block, and then it was just figuring out when I could stop blocking so that I could regenerate my stamina a bit, and that sort of thing. But when I wasn't actually getting hit, when they were just hitting my shield, it wasn't doing much damage. It's just anytime that they hit me, usually when I was not blocking because I was attacking, that it would do a lot more damage. But then the other thing that killed me, probably, I would say probably about at least 50% of my deaths were from that beam attack. Where they teleport off to some other part of the room, and the main issue was if I didn't happen to find them quickly enough, and then they got the attack off, and then I wasn't able to dodge it, and so then I died. But then the other half of the time that I died from that, it was because even though I found them, I dodged too early, and so then I ended up getting hit by it. Then probably about 30% of my deaths were from, well, it probably wasn't quite 30%. It was probably more like 15% of my deaths were specifically from that one where they teleport and stab down. Mm-hmm. And then the rest of my deaths were just random other ways that I died. So I have no idea how many times I attempted this fight. It was a lot. And like, the shield was working. I started getting better at dodging the beam attack. As long as I could find them, usually I could dodge it. I mean, there's still plenty of times where I dodged too early and then got hit, but as long as I dodged late enough, it was easy to avoid. But it was still just like, it was frustrating. Most of the time I couldn't even get to phase 2. And thankfully, I knew going into the fight that there was a phase 2, so like that part didn't surprise me at all. I knew that was coming, and I knew that if you didn't attack the younger brother or older brother, however it works, the one that the backpack, if you didn't attack the backpack, then he revives the other brother if you kill him again. I didn't even encounter that, but because the reality is that even when I got to phase 2, I never got far into it. Like, I would be doing okay initially, but then usually I just get hit by the backpack's magic attacks. And I think I may have gotten to phase 2 like 5 or 6 times. And so I'm just like so frustrated. I'm so sick of this fight. For me, this was basically the new Ornstein and Smaug for me. Except that it was even worse in some ways. Well, because like Ornstein and Smough, I felt like more than anything it was just my reflexes that were the problem. And of course, obviously Ornstein was really cheap with sometimes him having to like go around pillars and stuff with his charging spear attack, and sometimes having attacks go through Smough and stuff like that. But anyway, this one was just like I was just messing up too much, and I think that the strategy could have been good if I had better figured out the right openings for attacks. Because sometimes I'd be able to get off 2-3 hits in a row, and I'm using Zweihander still, of course. Even though I have tried a bunch of other weapons, it's just Zweihander is still the best one in terms of overall damage output plus weight for that damage output, and so on and so forth. But anyway, I'm spending a bunch of time on this fight. I'm getting way too frustrated, and I just decided at that point to put the game down for a bit. I wasn't getting anywhere with it. I went back in, tried that Prince's fight again, and still wasn't really making any progress. But I remembered, there's some stuff in the checklist that I had been using that I hadn't done yet. Some stuff I had skipped over because basically there got to a certain point where I stopped following the checklist and I just explored and did it, entirely on my own without worrying about what was on the checklist. So I went back to the checklist and found some of the stuff that I had forgotten about, or that I hadn't gotten, like in Smoldering Lake and Irithyll Dungeon and Profane Capital. And then I found that there was a couple of... Well, there's quite a few optional bosses that I hadn't fought yet. Areas that I hadn't been to yet. So I went to the King's Garden? No, I don't think that's what it's called.
Oh, yeah.
But it's where you fight Oceiros, or however it's pronounced. The weird dragon king with the invisible baby. And I fought him. I think it probably took me 3 tries. First time I went in completely blind. Or basically blind. Like, I didn't actually know what I was doing. I knew what the boss looked like, and that was about it. Didn't survive. Second time I went in less blind, but didn't survive. And then third time I went in, I used the one summon that was available close by. And yeah, it was wasn't too bad of a fight. With the summon helping me out, that definitely helped a lot. Got his attention off of me some more. I mean, I was doing a good amount of damage. I think I've been pretty well over-leveled most of the time. And of course, I was coming in pretty late. But after going through this, I go into the... I can't remember the name of the area. It's Untented Graves. And get to the champion Gundyr. And definitely, obviously not as easy as the original version of the boss that you fight in the beginning of the game. Of course, he also doesn't transform or anything. He just gets more aggressive. But took me quite a few tries to get through that. I think initially I was trying to use melee and it wasn't really working well for me. I knew he was resistant to toxic, but it did work, so I made sure to get him toxified as much as possible. I'm pretty sure in the end I did end up using a summon to help me get through the fight. I mean, it was, of course, like the game's default summon, which was Swordmaster, I believe. And really, more than anything, it was intended to keep him off my back. So, got him toxic, and then, just used my pyromancy to take him down. And that, thankfully, it still did a lot of damage to him. I was doing, I think, around like 800 some odd damage for each one that hit. So, it was a good amount of damage. Still pretty difficult, but not anywhere near, in terms of all the difficult fights that I've had to deal with. So it wasn't that big of a deal. Got through it. Continued on to the next area. Cheesed all of the Black Knights with Toxic because I discovered that they will not follow you back into back to the bonfire. Like once you get up to that door, they won't follow you past that. So you can just use Toxic and cheese them that way. Oh, you can do that. You can do that on Orlando as well, which is great. On the Silver Knights there that are right by the entrance to the main hall, you can lure them just to the bridge, and they won't go onto the bridge, and so then you can just poison them and then stand back and watch them try to hit you, but they won't go past a certain point. So it's like, hey, that works. Let's see here. Looking at, I did go into the Archdragon something or other. Archdragon Peak, I think is the name of the place.
Yeah.
And I went into the Ancient Wyvern fight. Wyvern, however you pronounce it. So I know that the supposedly easy way to beat him is to do a plunge attack. The problem is, of course, you have to get through all of those lizard people on the way up there. And I think probably my first or second attempt going through there, I managed to actually get up there. I wasn't even trying to attack all the guys. I was just running through as best as I could, got up the ladder, got to the plunging spot, went off to try to plunge, and the plunge attack didn't activate, and I just crashed on the ground and died. Unfortunately, I didn't get that recorded. I thought I did, but I looked through my footage, and I don't have it, so... but anyway, so, yeah, that was like, it sucked. And then after that, most of the times I didn't even make it to the ladder. The couple times I did make it to the ladder, I would almost always get hook-shotted by that axe-wielding guy with the axe hook shot. Or the chain axe, whatever you want to call it. You swing it, grab me on my back, and pull me off the ladder, and I die instantly. And it's just like, So, after a number of attempts, and just nothing really quite doing the trick, because, I even tried at one point just killing everything as I went along, and it was working okay for a bit, but then I got it to a point where there was just too many enemies, and ended up dying from them, and after a bunch of attempts, I finally just decided, okay, I know of a spot where I can very easily just shoot arrows at this stupid dragon. And that's what I ended up doing to kill him. It took me 12 minutes to get through that fight because of how long it took to get the arrows, because it's short, pretty much right after you cross the bridge, after you first see him. There's a small building where you get a bunch of those lizard guys, and he'll breathe fire in there and kill them off. But right around the corner on either side, or at least on the left side when you're walking up to it, that's basically a safe spot where you can shoot from. I mean, you still kind of have to move out, shoot a couple arrows, then back up against the wall in order to avoid getting destroyed by fire. But yeah. That one I'm not really ashamed of. I'm not ashamed of it because I don't really think of it as a cheese. Technically, that's the harder fight because, well, let me put it this way. I know that it can be an easy fight if you can get the plunging attack. It could very well even be a one-hit kill from what it sounds like. But the problem is getting up there to do the plunging attack. That is the hard part of that stupid fight. And the arrows, as tedious as it was, and as much as I wanted to give up on the arrows, I was also after a bunch of tries, I just decided, okay, this isn't worth it. I'm just going to deal with it. I'll just slowly chip away at his health until he's dead. Then I can go cash in my souls, and then go back through the area and take out all the guys and get all the items and so on. But yeah, so I completed that, and I started in the next portion of it, and didn't go super far. I went a little ways into it, before I decided I was going to go back and try Lothric and Lorien again. So this time I decided, just based on a video I had seen where they were explaining the cheese again. For one, they did a good job explaining that when you get to that second phase, assuming you get the glitch to work correctly, you don't move at all, because if you move, he will move, and then he'll attack you, and then you're screwed. But if you if you don't move, then he'll stay still, and you can just fire at the brother from behind with arrows and until he dies. So, the first part of the phase, I just did pyromancy the whole time. And I discovered something from watching this video that I kind of wish I had done this earlier, or had thought of it earlier. But, I mean, for one, I was determined to stick with my strategy of the shield and the sword, because the shield was doing a really good job blocking the damage. But also, I just wasn't really thinking about the fact that I could just focus on being far away instead of being up close. Because, yeah, I had to be closer if I wanted to attack him with a sword. But if I was using pyromancy, I could back up quite a bit, and then it was much easier. Like, I think, honestly, one of the biggest issues that kept coming up for me was the very first teleport when he comes, because he would always teleport from the back of the room by the altar to the front of the room where you were standing. And it never occurred to me until this time, I should just run forward as soon as I get in, and then he'll be further away from me and he'll be less likely to hit me. So go in, and I think it still took me probably 2 or 3 tries using this method. But once I finally got him to phase 2 using pyromancy, there he was, sitting there, not moving. I didn't move either. I just pulled out my bow, chip, 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 and just keep doing it until the backpack died. I did it until he was down to where one hit would kill him. And then just out of spite, I pulled out my Zweihander, two-handed, the strongest pancake slam that I could muster, and took him out that way. And even though I'm a little disappointed with myself in that I didn't figure out doing the dodges from further away a lot earlier, and that I didn't even attempt to do phase 2 with this new strategy, I also am just glad it's done. So yeah, that has been my Dark Souls 3 journey. I know that I still have a handful of bosses, not even counting the DLC ones. I think I'm at the point where technically I could go to the Kiln of the First Flame. I believe all I have to do is just put down the soul or ashes or whatever on the final throne in the Firelink Shrine, and then it should be able to go to the last area. But obviously I want to do all the rest of the stuff that I have, because I have at least 3 or 4 bosses left. Probably more than that, because I know that there's at least 1, if not 2 more for this area, for the Archdragon Peak or whatever it's called. Because I know that, like, there's a fight against the king, Nameless King. Is that what it is? No, that's
correct.
Okay, so I know there's that. I can't remember if there's another fight besides that in that area, other than, just normal enemies and stuff. And then I know I have at least a few other fights. I'm not sure how many of the ones I've seen are specifically DLC bosses. Because I just recently watched a video where someone was doing a bunch of skeletons versus every boss in Dark Souls 3, and seeing how many of them could survive all the skeletons. And it was like, I think 15 of them skeletons won, and 10 of them the bosses won. But anyway, so yeah, I don't know how many bosses I have left, but I got past this. I'm sure that there's going to be more difficult fights, but I don't know if any one of them are going to be quite as frustrating to me as the Dancer and the brothers. I still think the Dancer's the worst of all of them. I mean, that one, obviously, you know, that was the easier cheese because of the fact that I could do it from the very beginning of the fight instead of having to get to phase 2 before I could cheese. But yeah, and obviously Dragonslayer armor, I didn't attempt it enough times to know how frustrating it would have been had I actually attempted it more times. So, anyway. That's all I got.
Okay, so I was just trying to look up some stuff, just because it's very curious about what you were saying. Actually, you really, outside of the final boss, there are really only 2 bosses you have left as far as like the base game.
Right.
One is Nameless King, the other is the Old Demon King, but that's really it.
No, Old Demon King I already beat.
Okay,
that was the Smoldering Lake one.
I guess the achievement just didn't unlock on Steam then. Because that like popping up on the list here.
It's weird. Unless the Old Demon King isn't the one at Smoldering Lake. I could have I mean,
that should be it.
I'm
that should
positive. I mean, I know for a fact I beat him. I have my footage that I beat him. I hope that it didn't just not pop. That would be rather frustrating. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, sometimes it doesn't show all the achievements immediately. That would be annoying if I had to redo it just for that. I mean, of course, you know, eventually I probably would replay anyway, but let's see here. Yeah, you're right. It doesn't show the achievement for that completed, which is really odd because I definitely beat him. I'll have to look and see if there's some trick to get it to pop when it doesn't pop. It's like I didn't even cheese him either, you know, I beat him completely legit. So that is very, very bizarre. Huh. Yeah. Okay, well, I don't know. I don't know why it wouldn't have that one activated. But anyway, did you have anything else?
Yeah. One thing I will actually say is, unlike, I mean, I don't know if you already are aware of this or not, but unlike Dark Souls 1, after you beat the final boss, it won't kick you into New Game Plus. So if you feel like you have to beat everything before you go there, you don't have to worry about that because you'll still be able to actually go around throughout the world, still go and explore, you know, get whatever you want, or even if you choose to do so, jump right into the DLC. You don't have to worry about like immediately being thrown into New Game Plus as soon as the game is over. So that's something I just wanted to make sure you knew about that in case you were wondering about like, oh, I have to hurry up and like do everything before I get to the boss. Like, no, you're not that pressed for time. I definitely will agree that the Dancer sucks. and honestly, I think the thing that really was a problem for me when I was fighting her was just the fact that I couldn't really predict what type of move she was going to do, and that was depending on whether she was going to do a fast attack or a slower attack.
Right.
That's really what was the issue I had with her. And I mean, I tried to just like hide behind a bunch of pillars, which sort of worked until the second half of the fight where they're on fire and then touching them hurts you. But yeah, she was annoying, and I really don't like the fact that as soon as you finish whatever the final lord you're fighting is, depending on whichever path you're taking, once you're done with that final lord, then you get summoned to her fight, which is just like, you were smarter than I was though, because I didn't know that was going to happen until as soon as I finished my final lord, I got teleported and was thinking, oh man, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What do I do? What do I do? You immediately said, I'm just going to homeward bone out of here.
I've learned my lesson for enough times from making that mistake. Like, especially when I was playing Dark Souls on the Switch, and I beat the the meme boss, Pinwheel. When I beat
yeah.
Pinwheel, and then I immediately started going towards the Tomb of the Unknown Giant, or the Tomb of whatever it's called, and then I fell off and I lost those souls that I had, and at that point, those souls would have been really helpful to level up. Not that it would have fixed my garbage build, but it was just like, so I learned after that. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make sure that if I if I have a bunch of souls, that I make use of them right away, even if I have to waste some of them, the extra ones, on just whatever, on arrows or something. I do want to say with that though, it was more like I got teleported. I started talking to the NPC, and then the fight was, the cutscene was starting. I was like, oh crap, there's a fight starting, and so I went ahead and got out the homeward bone and teleported and was able to utilize my souls. But anyway.
Yeah, and I'm actually very surprised that she wasn't your wall and that Lothric and Lorien were, because I know I just felt like she seemed, at least in my experience, she was definitely, she wasn't my wall. My wall was Pontiff, but I understood the frustration, so I thought she was going to be like that issue. But yeah, Lothric and Lorien definitely. They definitely take a whole lot of getting used to, just because of the fact, like you said, the magic beam is probably one of the worst things, and especially the fact that also, at least, correct me if I'm wrong, but at least from what I remember, the magic beam can even go through the pillars.
Yep.
Yeah, so that definitely does not really give you a lot of options as far as like what you need to do,
right?
Really trying to like strategize what you're going to do on the fly, because of the fact that you're always going to be vulnerable no matter where you are.
Yeah. Especially
with that teleporting, because you might be halfway around the arena trying to like duck and cover from just the normal orbs that are fired at you, and then, they teleport, and as you said, dive bomb right on top of you. Yep. And dead. Yeah. Champion, he was very interesting because of the fact that, he was interesting as the fact that, like you said, he's just more aggressive, whereas a lot of times bosses will have a second phase, and then I'm just gonna try harder, which was interesting. Now, when I first fought him, it was very difficult, but I miraculously was able to get through him without dying. But then when I tried to fight him again on the second time around, he was just relentlessly kicking my butt, and I was really trying to figure out, what did I do the first time that I'm not doing this time, because it just definitely wasn't making sense. But that's a very interesting strategy that you had, though. I didn't know about the fact that you could just lure the Black Knights that were there to an area and just slowly kill them, which I'm glad, because those guys are definitely annoying, and all the knights are just annoying to me. But so definitely having a way to deal with them with as little stress as possible is always great to know, in that regard.
Yeah, I think that if I were to fight the princes again, of course, simply knowing that I should have just been dodging backwards more often probably would have helped a lot. But at least with when it comes to the being able to attack with physical attacks, I just don't feel like I have a good enough handle on that, apart from dodging backwards. And, of course, if I had realized from the beginning that I should just be running forward instead of trying to, block his first attacks and everything, it probably would have saved me a lot of trouble. Not that it necessarily would have made the fight a lot easier, but it would have at least helped reduce frustration. What was I got to say about that, though? Oh yeah, the beam attack, the Dragonslayer armor shield, whatever it's called, actually can block that attack. It doesn't block it fully, but it reduces the damage significantly, because instead of it being a one-hit kill, it does like maybe half a health bar, at least on my character. With, I think I have like, at the time I had probably 19 vigor, something like that. So decent amount of HP. But like right now my character's at, I think, level 93. So, like, my damage output's good. It's just, you still get enemies cheap shotting and all this other garbage. But, yeah. So, we'll see what happens with the rest of it. I don't expect to be done with it before next week, but we'll see how the weekend goes. I still need to record Red Dead Redemption stuff, which I'm hoping to get done this weekend. I don't think I'll have the comparison done necessarily, but I'll at least get the recording done. Well, God willing. Hoping Saturday I can just, like, since the kids normally get to watch their shows anyway, just say, hey kids, guess what? You get to watch your show. You get to each have an hour to watch shows, so that way you can be in the front room while I'm recording stuff in the kitchen. But, yeah. Anyway. Any other thoughts on that?
No, sir.